Hey Alex. So last video you said I would be reviewing Catch-22 this week, but it turns out that you're kind of a liar. By which I mean that I live in the middle of nowhere and can't find the book anywhere unless I order it online. So I'm going to postpone that until we're both in the same city and I can just borrow your copy. So instead, for this week I'm going to be reviewing Ella Enchanted by Gail Carson Levine. Ella Enchanted is essentially a fairy tale. When Ella is born, she is given the gift of obedience from a fairy. While obedience might sound like a desirable trait, especially among fairy tale women, in practice it's much worse than it sounds. Ella is forced to obey every order given to her, even at risk to her own life. The book deals with her struggling against her evil stepfamily, trying to get the curse lifted, and falling in love with the resident royalty, Prince Charmant. Get it? Prince Charmant? Prince Charming? See what you did there? Puns are funny. In case you haven't figured it out, the story is pretty much a retelling of Cinderella, right down to the pumpkin carriage and the glass slippers. So, I'm just gonna come out and say it. I frickin' love this book. I loved it when I first read it, and even reading it now, it pretty much stands up. The strength of this book comes almost entirely from the title character. It's called Ella Enchanted for a reason. Ella is an unbelievably believable character. She's strong-willed, she's stubborn, and she's not willing to take the curse lying down. And she's not self-righteous in her suffering. I can't stand in books when the main character goes through so much crap and they just put up with it because, oh, the world is against them. Ella has her share of moments when she flat-out rants about how much her life sucks. And though she is capable of taking care of herself, the book never ignores the danger that the curse leaves her in so that she can look like a hero and save the day. Also, she has very good taste in men. When I was a kid, Prince Charmant was very high up on the list of fictional characters I was madly in love with. Upon rereading, he can come across as kind of two-dimensional, but that's because a lot of his later characterization comes across through letters that he writes to Ella, which is a flagrant violation of show don't tell, but considering the amount of characterization that Prince Charming gets in the original Cinderella stories and the Disney remake, I'm not about to complain. Besides, big chunks of the early parts of the book are dedicated to him just being nice and down-to-earth and funny and... The curse itself is handled really well. A lot of the times when you get curses or prophecies in fiction, they tend to be followed really literally. Like, just look at the prophecies in Harry Potter and how closely the wording was picked apart, looking for some sort of hidden meaning. But in Ella Enchanted, it's often clear that Ella is bound as much by the spirit of the order she is given as the letter. A good example of this is when Ella's soon-to-be stepsister demands that she give her mother's necklace. Rather than, say, giving her the necklace and then immediately taking it back, Ella knows that Hattie means to keep the necklace, and that if Ella does anything to prevent this, the curse won't allow her. This eliminates a lot of plot holes that would otherwise occur in a book that is based so heavily around words and their exact meaning. Admittedly, there are a couple times where Ella tries to rebel by following the letter of the order and only that, but for the most part the orders are straightforward and unambiguous enough that there's no room for interpretation. And before anyone asks, the most recent orders always take precedent over previous ones, so no one can order her just to never follow another order unless she chose to. Now, because the book is written for kids, some of the implications of her curse are glanced over. I mean, it's mentioned that if someone ordered her to kill herself, she wouldn't be able to say no. It's mentioned that if someone were to order her to kill herself, Ella wouldn't be able to resist, but at one point in the book, one of the characters orders her to feel happy about the curse, and she literally has to until someone tells her otherwise. It's not only Ella's actions, but Ella's thoughts that are at risk every day. Think of the mind rape potential. And of course, the actual rape. Think of the Rule 34 fics that are out there right now. One of the things that always bugged me about the book was how heavy-handed the Cinderella thing became towards the end. Throughout most of the book you have the dead mother and eventually the evil stepsisters, and then eventually it's explained why Ella becomes a cinder maid, because she has no choice, obviously. But within the last couple chapters, all of a sudden it's like, bam, balls, bam, meeting the prince, glass slippers. Although the book does go out of the way to explain why the slipper fits Ella's foot and only Ella's. But I will say that aside from that, I absolutely love the ending of the book. Ella and Char are in love with each other, but Ella has already lied to Char and said that she's gotten married because she knows the dangers that she would put him in if they were to be together. She could be used as a weapon against him or even against the country. But she's unable to stay away from them, so she attends 3 balls in disguise, eventually leaving behind, surprise, a glass slipper. Char is able to track her down and finds out that she really does love him. Interjection, there's a moment when Ella's been discovered and everyone knows it's her, but she has still yet to admit her real name. And she's freaking out and crying, and she knows that things are about to go horribly wrong, and she can't resist the guy that she's in love with because of, well, the whole curse thing. And Char, who is in love with her and furious with her and yet still wants to be with her more than anything, just looks at her and realizes how upset she is and says, "You don't have to be Ella if you don't want to." I don't know about anyone else, but that all girls want bad boys things? Yeah, not so much applying here. Anyways, Char eventually tells Ella to marry him. And he doesn't mean it as a command or anything, he's just proposing. But of course Ella has to So she has this mental breakdown as she's trying to avoid saying yes, but her symptoms are getting worse and worse, and she's feeling sick, and people all around her are telling her to marry the prince, and she just can't resist the orders, but she realizes the danger that she would put everyone in. And eventually, with all her willpower, she manages to say no. She's not buying into the whole, we're in love so we can get through this thing. She's being smart about it. And ultimately, this is what breaks the curse. It's not a matter of there being some sketchy wording that can be exploited or a loophole. And it's not even enough just to save her own life or the life of a man she loves. It takes all her strength to save the life of her entire kingdom. Now that is how you break a curse. So overall, this is a great book. It's a quick read, it's lighthearted, and it goes to great length to explain why things happen the way they do in the original Cinderella tale. I'll give it 5 fairy-made glass slippers out of 5. Alex, I'll see you next week when you review YouTube's favorite book, Paper Towns. Until then, walk in the shade. This book is based on Cinderella. Ella, Ella, A, A, A.